a democracy. These young people are going to be the ones that have to pay the price for these horrible decisions.
And you can just really hear the passion and emotions in her voice as she's being led away in handcuffs.
We talked about the dismantling of that encampment and some of the protesters out there, but we didn't see a lot of skirmishes. At some point we saw some of the protesters trying to take some of the items back, but still a lot of restraint and we're talking about from both sides, from police and also from some of the protesters as police were literally taking down those tents.
A little bit of tug of war.
Yeah, every now and then with some of the protesters trying to take some of those items back. But yeah, that was quite a soundbite there from that one professor from the Global Studies Department, talking about, giving her very passionate plea about how she feels about what's happening on the campus she teaches at.
Yeah, it's true. And you wouldn't think that, professors, might get involved in this because of their jobs and, the possibility of, what could happen, but certainly these emotions and passions and beliefs are not just at the student level, as we've been seeing across the country. We're seeing at the community level, people who just want to come in and support their community school here at UC Irvine and the students who are protesting tonight. And so you see a mixed bag of different supporters. But one thing that we have not seen, as we've been talking about, is the anti-protesters who usually come in and, you could cause a bigger scene here, but that's one thing we haven't seen, and that certainly makes the job a little easier for police officers, I would say, to not have to control any kind of fighting going on between two groups. And to keep it to one group, certainly. That has been the good news in all of this tonight. If there is any, just to say that it has been peaceful for the most part, outside of some bottles being thrown about an hour ago or so. But outside of that, people have been pushed back, and that's where they have stayed.
And we haven't heard a lot from professors or faculty, like going on camera, just as we heard from that lady. But when we have, like she pointed out, being angry that of all the trash there on the campus, I guess she's mad that police came in and took that away and then possibly saying, hey, this is why we have this mess here tonight, because you came and dismantle this encampment, and now look at our campus, the trash is all over the place.
Right, oh, totally. And I will say, when we were talking to Michelle Geely, UC Irvine was ready to clean up that trash, though. As soon as those cops were tossing them out, they had vans they were putting it into, and they were moving it and getting it off that campus immediately. Yeah,
it's true. Obviously they want to clear this encampment away and make sure that the campus is back open for classes as we're nearing the end of the year here, obviously taking finals and commencement ceremonies coming up here for UC students. And, as these protests have been happening across the country, obviously during commencement time, that's certainly added a level of more heat, if you will, to the fire, just because of the fact that these are times where people are very passionate about getting their graduation ceremonies, making sure that their families can participate, and making sure that that has all stayed normal, as a lot of these students did not get to experience normal during the pandemic when they were on campus taking off-campus or online classes. So a lot of different emotions, I am certain, here on the UC Irvine campus tonight. No different from what we've seen across different campuses across the country for the past several weeks.
And Susie, certainly pointing to a sign of the times. I remember we spoke with a young woman last week who was graduating, who talked about her family had spent all of this money on flights to come, for the graduation, and to come visit and to celebrate and to congratulate her. And, you kind of hate that they don't get that experience after, spending, 4 years or more in college working hard for
investing all that time and money.
And for a lot of these guys, they didn't get to have a high school graduation.
That's another thing. You go all the way back.
Right. Exactly. And here we are. And I was just looking at when UCI's commencements were. They've only had one. Their School of Law was last Friday. And the rest of them are still ahead, still to come.
But I do have to commend some of the universities who they've been a little more creative in how they can still celebrate. I think it was USC who had that event event with the fireworks
at the Coliseum.
And I remember talking to students. I remember listening to students say, "Hey, this was good.
Good alternative.
Good alternative. We were still able to celebrate. We hate what happened. We hate we didn't get a normal graduation, but I have been just refreshing to see some of the campuses do things out of the box to still try to congratulate and try to bring these students together and give them some kind of honor.
Sure.
Yeah, and Pomona moved theirs from their campus over to the Shrine Auditorium, which met with a lot of criticism because people didn't like how far away it was. But a lot of these guys are in tough situations. Oh, look at that! That's interesting. As just as I talked about not being able to form a barricade in a big open area like that, it looks like they've done it with themselves. Kind of looks like a line that they're chain.
Line, right? Yeah, it's true. And, we've been talking about this unlawful assembly declared earlier this afternoon on the UC Irvine campus. And hours later, here we are still watching these protesters be moved back by police officers as they are many officers deep and pushing these protesters back, but slowly. They've been just on their loudspeakers, just, saying, hold the line and then push forward, hold the line, move forward. And that's what we've been seeing. And as far as we can tell right now, very peaceful, very orderly as far as we know. I wonder if we can go back to Leslie Mudding there on the ground, but let's go to Mike for just a second.
We can go to Leslie for sure. We just have SkyCal back up. And so I just wanted to see if we can get that look again from the chopper. As we get ready to pull that up, you can see the group there. But, he was over at John Wayne getting fuel and doing all of that. So, we'll get to SkyCal's pictures. Here you go. And that kind of gives us a better little image of how many people, and certainly more spread out. They were all kind of cramped in between the two buildings there. And now they're all spread out. John, I wonder, can you get in close on that line of people there at the bottom of the shot? I'm just curious. It looks like they may be praying. Yeah. Okay. So that wasn't they're praying now on the grass there.
Gotcha. And it looks like so you have two groups now, Mike. I guess the groups right there are kneeling, praying again. And then if you go back, there's also another group that's closer to where the officers are, right there. Yeah.
And the officers have moved down the sidewalk there. And again, an interesting geographical dynamic here, because now there's a wall or something that is in between the officers and the protesters or the people that are in there. And the chanting, all of that appears to have stopped at this moment. I don't know if everyone's kind of cooperating to allow the prayers to happen or what, but certainly a calm situation at the moment, at least.
Yeah, it really is. Actually a poignant moment that we're seeing here in our coverage as we look from SkyCal, a bird's eye view of UC Irvine tonight as those protests continue. In the middle of that protest, a moment for prayer. And that's what we're seeing with these lines of protesters who were in that big crowd at one point, but they've since formed this line to kneel down and pray. And it looks like that's what they're going to be doing for a moment now. And the protesters in this park sort of spread out now, not in any kind of order, but the police officers still there on the line, as you can see on the right side of your screen, the dark line of police officers there. That's what we've been seeing this entire time. And the officers behind them as well.
But certainly a better space right here, Mike, for those who did want to pray versus that encampment there and that smaller area where people were just gathered versus now you have folks who just want to stand around and take pictures or stand around and watch what's going on versus this group right here that's praying, and you have more of an open space. And, like you said, it seems a little more calm.
Right, they were able to remove themselves right there from the skirmish line and be able to conduct their prayers. And again, it doesn't appear that during this time law enforcement has moved forward either. So it just kind of seems like everybody is holding still at the moment.
All right, we're going to continue our coverage from UC Irvine as SkyCal gives us this bird's eye view. We invite you to join us for KCAL News at 8.
We're just students. I'm only a student. Look at what they're doing to us.
Right now on KCAL News at 8, a busy night. We continue to follow the breaking news at UC Irvine tonight. Deputies and police have cleared out a pro-Palestinian encampment. We've seen dozens of arrests happen.
And the standoff continues at this hour. Hundreds of law enforcement personnel facing off with hundreds of protesters who remain there on the UC Irvine campus. Welcome to KCAL News at 8, streaming live on CBS News Los Angeles. I'm Susie Sa.
And I'm Chauncey Glover. We've been covering the unrest since it began shortly before 4 o'clock today.
That's right. Let's get you up to speed on the latest. Pro-Palestinian protesters who set up an encampment 2 weeks ago, blocking the entrance, and began occupying the Physical Sciences Lecture Hall this afternoon at the UC Irvine campus. University police declaring an unlawful assembly and calling for help from the Orange County Sheriff's Department, Irvine Police Department, Huntington Beach, Newport Beach, and also the UC campus police.
Now, officers then began to move in and clear the tent city and arrest the protesters. We have seen pushing, a little bit of shoving, but no major violent incidents here tonight. We do know all classes have been canceled this evening, and all staff was told to work remotely tomorrow, and students were also told to shelter in place.
That's right. Let's get back to KCAL's Leslie Marin live there on the campus tonight. What's happening now, Leslie?
Well, Susie, I will tell you, this is the quietest it has been all day. We know that when we look at what some of the protesters are doing just on the other side of this group of law enforcement officers, is we saw some of them in a line taking a moment to pray. Since then, it has been extremely quiet in this area all day long. We have not really been able to hear the choppers overhead because of just how loud the chanting was. In the mix with law enforcement commands, it was just very loud in this area. This is the first time, I will tell you, it feels very, very calm. As I said, when we got a bird's eye view from SkyCal, it looked like some of the protesters were taking a moment to pray. Those who were not doing that were showing their respect and staying silent. I want to see if I can get closer to where we can see some of these protesters over here, because we've made our way towards Aldrich Park here. You can see there is law enforcement from many different agencies, some from Newport Beach. We're seeing some from Orange as well. On the other side of them, there are some protesters here, but there's a pretty large group on the other end. So that is what we're seeing right now. We have not seen law enforcement make any movements in the last few moments, but this is not what it was like earlier this evening. If we can get to some video, because we were here as law enforcement did push back these protesters from that encampment, making their way through that encampment. Some of the protesters used things like large steel tables, as well as tents, barricades, anything to put a barricade between themselves and officers. We also saw several people get detained. Many times they were the ones that were not listening to the officers' commands. They have called this an unlawful assembly, meaning that these people are being told to go home and disperse. These officers are being rather patient with much of this group, as we have gone on several hours now at UCI. Now, earlier today, we did speak to some protesters about why they were out here. Take a listen.
I've been out here for 17 days.
You've been out here for 17 days.
One of their officers took his baton and hit me right in my chest for no reason. And I still said, it's okay. They put him in the back. They're protecting him. And now they're all pointing at me saying, go get him. All I'm doing here is peacefully protesting. Sorry about that. And they're getting violent. They're taking their batons and hitting people right in their chest. We're not free. This is not freedom. This is not freedom.
These students right now, they've been having a peaceful protest, and here comes the system again.
So you came out here as not a student of UCI, but because of what was happening?
No, to protect our children and to protect our world.
Do you know what this group is asking for?
To divest funds, to free Palestine, to free Gaza, to free Sudan, to free Congo, to make a better world.
Are you a student here at UCI?
I am not. I live down the street, but I'm here to stand for people that's standing for something that they deeply believe in.
Did you come out here because of what had happened?
Stand for something or you will fall for anything.
Sir, did you come out here because of today you were hearing what was happening on campus, or have you been out here for days?
No, I just came today, but I know that there's been people that have been here for a long time, standing for something that they deeply believe in, you know? They're just students, and they have whole riot gear. That is not okay. not okay.
They have made some arrests. If that does happen, are you willing to be arrested?
Yeah. As a student, I think I'm allowed to be on my own campus and protest for a good cause, and I'm fine with an arrest.
Has this disrupted your studies at all?
No, not at all. Especially the encampments. It's in this only section of the campus, so I'm able to walk around it, and there's a bunch of other ways to my classes.
Well, that last student you heard from said he was just walking from class that has now been canceled here at UCI when he decided to begin to show his support for this protest. At last check, I still saw him out here as well. But as you heard, there was a mix of students here at UCI, and there was a mix of people that did not attend this school. You heard from a kindergarten teacher there, a local Irvine resident. But back out here, this is the situation right now, very calm and peaceful. At last check, we saw some of the protesters were praying, so we have not seen any chanting in the last, I would say, maybe 15 minutes here. We have not seen any movement from police as well. They have not given any commands. Earlier, they were doing it pretty regularly for them to just take 5 steps forward. We have not seen that happen, but as night has fallen here at UCI, we will see what the next move is for both protesters and these officers. For now, I will send it back to you in studio, Susie and Chauncey.
Yeah, Leslie, from your vantage point, I know earlier, you were talking about how you didn't see any movement as far as the protesters, actually getting off campus. Have you seen in the last, few minutes or so, actually people listening to the unlawful assembly? I mean, just the orders that the officers have been putting out for hours now? Is anyone leaving campus as far as you can see?
That order to leave, I am not seeing that. If anything, I'm kind of just seeing people standing around right now as that group was taking a prayer. I can't see them right now. At last check, they were praying here. I'm going to assume they're doing the same thing because it is completely silent. This is not what it sounded like we know earlier throughout hours of our coverage. It is quiet right now. You can hear conversations from the person next to you. So at this point, officers aren't giving any commands, and we're not hearing anything from protesters.
Yeah, and Leslie, what's been the overall reaction from some of those students and protesters? You watched all evening as police moved that line forward, and they seemed to start to do that faster and faster. And you told me probably about 30 minutes ago that most of the folks that you watched be arrested by police were those who were resisting arrest or somehow being seemingly violent.
Yeah, at times we saw people throw water bottles at officers, as well as just throw water on officers. Many times the people we saw being arrested, it looks like there is some sort of action over here. You guys, I'm not sure what's happening. We just heard some people yelling over here. We are going to try to make our way over here to show you what's happening.
I'm Chris Milano with the University of California Irvine Police Department.
Okay, it looks like they have taken down another protester here. You can see someone's underneath the officers. We're also hearing law enforcement make another order telling these protesters that this is an unlawful assembly and that they have to leave. If not, they will be arrested. But we are watching as officers here, many of them UCI police officers, taking that gentleman now, arresting him. Right now we're just seeing one protester arrested. That was probably the most tense situation we saw out here in the last 20 minutes. But you can hear UCI police continue to make these demands for this group to disperse, as this is now an unlawful assembly. They're now saying they only have 5 minutes to disperse and leave the area. So this is the first time we're hearing them really give a time. They're saying in 5 minutes, everyone has to leave. If not, they will be arrested.
All right, so that's one thing that we have not heard tonight, is that if you don't get off the campus, that you will be arrested. All we've been hearing so far are those orders that this is an unlawful assembly, you should move back. Every time they did it very slowly to those officers. For hours, they were moving this crowd back from the encampment area where that encampment was dismantled. And then, Leslie, they got pushed back into this park, right?
Yeah. Yeah, they're now at Aldrich Park. This is quite a ways away from where that encampment and that quad was. But this is the first time we are hearing that these protesters have about 5 minutes to leave. And I will tell you, it looks like many of them are walking the other direction. I don't know if they're in fact leaving or just heading deeper into the park. But what I'm looking at right now is many of them actually walking away from law enforcement after they made that order for them to leave, telling them they only had 5 minutes. If not, they would be arrested. And many times we do see police officers and many of these departments just try to be patient throughout the day. But once night falls, once it becomes nighttime, they do try to wrap this up rather quickly. And that is what we're seeing right now, telling these protesters only 5 minutes or they will begin making arrests.
And Leslie, we know that it can get extremely dangerous, especially when night falls and you're trying to keep up and keep track with so many people. And Leslie, Susie, you pointed out, we've only been hearing them say, hey, this is unlawful assembly, but now they're saying, if you do not leave this campus, you will be arrested. And Leslie, if you're a student out there and you've been, or you're a protester and you've been out there for the past few hours, you know that these officers are making true to their words, and we watch them move that encampment and get all of that debris out, and then move the line back and back and back and back,
and make arrests along the way.
Right. So you see some of those people leaving. Do you think some of those protesters are actually leaving after hearing police say, "Hey, 5 minutes, or you're going to be arrested if you don't leave campus"?
Chauncey, it looks like it. I will say they're definitely dispersed. This group that was pretty close-knit in a close group for majority of the afternoon now seems to have completely spread out across this park. Some I am seeing just leave. They're headed towards some parking structures around here or other parts probably of the campus, just going home. But the group has now dispersed rather largely. It is really dark in this area. That's another thing to note. There's not much bright light here. So it is hard to navigate if this became a tense situation. But right now, yeah, I am seeing this group really disperse. I am seeing them flash a light, though, at officers. It looks like maybe a phone or a flashlight. It is a bit blinding if you look right at it, but it looks like that's coming from the side of the protesters.
And we've seen a lot of restraint here tonight. We've seen police make several arrests, though, during this whole operation.
That's right. You know, that light, that flashing light that Leslie was just talking about on the top of your screen behind those officers there, you can see it. We saw that same light at different encampments across different campuses, namely UCLA campus. I remember when they were still behind their barricade there, they were shining that light at officers. I don't know if it comes from a cell phone or perhaps a separate light, like a flashlight.
It's a really high power.
Like an emergency
flashlight.
A flashlight, okay.
It's a flash like that,
And
a really
it's
high power
very
flashlight.
bright, yeah.
And Mike, if I recall, I remember people were on social media at one of the protests asking for people to bring those kinds of lights to the encampment.
Yeah, you know, Matt, who works over here on our digital team, when this first started, there was a lot of people going live. It was a very active situation. Then that kind of quelled and went down. And then as it really built up earlier, I looked and there were other people going live. I didn't see any of those kinds of requests like we saw at UCLA. It certainly didn't seem as organized as the ones at UCLA. I mean, the people at UCLA had press representatives that would, you know, come out and talk to us. Like, they were coordinated. Not so much the situation here, it doesn't seem like. I also want to point out, I was just talking to SkyCal. Leslie mentioned how dark it is. There is no law enforcement helicopter above either. Yeah. So there's no light coming from a law enforcement helicopter or anything like that.
Yeah, it's true. And, you know, when Leslie was talking about, you know, the orders from the officers to get off campus in 5 minutes or you will be arrested. Now, that order we saw just shortly after the sun went down. So Leslie was thinking that perhaps that's why the officers want to get everything wrapped up here, you know, as the darkness settles in to UC Irvine here. As you can see from our chopper shot, not a whole light to speak of out there. We're doing our best here to show you what's still happening out there. Trust us, there are still a lot of protesters out there, down there, and also these officers who are obviously not on their regular duties right now with multiple agencies throughout Orange County, but focusing their efforts on this right now. So they certainly want to get this wrapped up so they can report to their other emergencies as they normally do throughout the course of their shifts. So this is causing a lot of different, I guess, ripple effects, if you will, that we're not even talking about right now, when so many officers from the CHP, from multiple agencies, Orange County Sheriff's Department, all the different cities that you can possibly think of surrounding Irvine, all the different police agencies are here tonight. So let's go to Leslie Marin there on the ground to talk to us about the law enforcement presence there. Leslie.
Susie, I will tell you, sources tell me that earlier today, over the radio, UCI police did come over and ask for pretty much mutual aid. Just everyone, all the departments, surrounding departments, if they could make it down here to the campus, they needed their assistance. We also know that many of the officers here, especially the ones from Irvine, they were beat patrols. So they were patrolling the city when they were called over here. They then had to fill their spots, so they took some of their detectives, investigators, and put them to now patrol the city and get to some of those calls. So yeah, you're talking about resources. This is a lot of resources, especially for departments that aren't huge, like an LAPD, These are many city departments. You also, of course, have the OC Sheriff's Department out here. They're rather large, but we are not seeing any helicopter overhead, at least police helicopter overhead right now. So you wonder if they will come back. We have seen drones out here, and we know law enforcement uses those as a tool as well, Susie. So a lot still happening with this mutual aid that has started here, or has continued here, I should say, in Orange County.
Leslie, I know you talked about it being very dark here, dark out there. Are you seeing a little more disbursement in the crowd, or is it thinning out any more out there? Because we're probably we're over the 5-minute warning.
Thin. Yeah, it's very thin. I will tell you, the closest protesters are all the way on the other side of this park, and even then, you could probably count them out, maybe 24 left. We're not seeing any chanting, any organization. They're not coming at officers. It looks like they have pretty much dispersed to different parts of this park. So it'll be interesting to see what law enforcement does, given that they're now in groups of 1 and 2 instead of 20, if they will then go forward and still make arrests.
You were seeing there on the right side of your screen, as Leslie was just talking, you saw a lot of piles of debris and furniture and chairs and tents. Those are the items that were actually confiscated or taken away from the encampments as they were being dismembered earlier today, disbanded because of the fact that police officers were moving in. And now you can see how much of that is still waiting to be cleaned up, if you will. And so as Leslie gives us a shot of officers there on the ground telling these protesters that they have 5 minutes to get off the campus or they will be under arrest. Now that happened 8 minutes ago, just shortly after 8:10. So certainly over that 5-minute mark now, and we'll just have to wait to see what happens. But certainly there will be arrests made if this campus stays populated by these protesters. Obviously the sunlight, you can't see a lot because it's gone now, but as we were showing you earlier, a lot of people, hundreds of protesters were on this campus and being backed away by police officers who were making that skirmish line, many officers deep, to make sure that they could push these protesters back into this park, Aldridge Park at UC Irvine. That's what you're looking at on the right side of your screen there from our viewpoint from SkyCal. And on the left side of your screen is there on the ground where officers are waiting right now for their next order to see what they're going to be doing. So if we're talking about 9 minutes past that time now, I would imagine it would be any minute now where they say, it's time to go.
And they have been very, very precise all evening announcing what they're going to do next, announcing hold the line, telling them this is an unlawful assembly, and now saying, hey, if you don't leave campus, you might be arrested. You were talking about that encampment. Susie, putting this in perspective, we are talking about items and tents and things that was, you know, put in that encampment. We're talking about weeks. And they were ready to clean that stuff up. And when we take a look back at where the encampment was, they put a huge dent in getting that debris up.
It's true. You know, no doubt, as we were just talking about, many arrests already made and many more to be made as this unlawful assembly has been declared at UC Irvine. Police have made several arrests out there. Let's get back to our reporter, Michelle Geely, who's there live with the details. She's been there on the ground as tensions escalated earlier this afternoon, right, Michelle?
That's right. We've been here for several hours, Susie and Chauncey, and I'm standing in the area where many of the arrestees were brought. This is a parking lot just off the Physical Sciences quad. We do not have an official count yet as to how many people were arrested, but we did see several people being taken away in handcuffs, and there were a few who identified themselves as UC Irvine faculty. Now, this afternoon, police and sheriff's deputies from across Orange County converged on the Physical Sciences quad, where protesters had set up an encampment more than 2 weeks ago. A mutual aid response call was sent to dozens of police departments after the protesters surrounded the Physical Sciences lecture hall and barricaded the entrances. UCI then canceled classes for the remainder of the afternoon and the evening as scores of law enforcement mobilized on campus. They marched toward the group of protesters. They disassembled the encampment and arrested those who would not get out of the way.
Tenured professor, and they are destroying the campus and undoing a democratic, peaceful protest. Shame on them. Shame on them.
Ma'am, what department are you in?
I'm in the Global Studies Department.
And why are you here today?
Because we cannot have a genocidal foreign policy in a democracy. These young people are going to be the ones that have to pay the price for these horrible decisions.
I'm out here supporting my students who have the right to peacefully protest. And unlike the people who are escorting me right now, I think they're people, my students are not interested in violence. They're only interested in drawing attention to a genocide. And these police officers decided to grab me, even though I wasn't doing anything or saying anything any different from anyone else.
Tell us, is the arrest something that you've been concerned about, or you're willing to be arrested for this?
I'm absolutely concerned about it. It's very impactful for my future, but I'm willing to do this for this. This matters enough.
And your reaction to the way things unfolded this afternoon?
There was no violence. There was no reason for a police presence. There was just a group of There was just a group of students standing there and protesting peacefully. There was no reason for this to happen.
So the Physical Sciences quad, which is behind me here beyond this parking lot, is an absolute mess right now. You may see some trucks behind me. For the past few hours, UCI has been shuttling maintenance trucks in and out of that quad to collect all of those things, all of the belongings that the protesters had been using for the past couple of weeks. We're talking about pop-up tents, camping tents, coolers, water bottles, all kinds of food. I mean, it really is a mess out there. And as soon as the police officers, Susie and Chauncey, were grabbing these items, the wood pallets and the like, to try and dismantle the barricade and get closer to those protesters, they would kind of throw those items out of the way, beyond them, and the maintenance crews were very quickly gathering those things, loading them into trucks, truck after truck, big trucks filling all of these items to get this stuff out of the area, presumably so the barricades and the encampments wouldn't be rebuilt again.
All right.
That's the very latest live here at UCI. I'm Michelle Geely. Back to you.
All right. Thank you to Michelle and her photographer, Tim Kimball, for your coverage tonight. We really appreciate you staying so long, Michelle. Really appreciate it. All right, we're going to switch gears now and talk about our weather.
That's right. We want to go right over to Evelyn Taft. And Evelyn, today was quite gloomy, but also quite cool out there.
Yes, indeed. A little bit of it all, indeed. So it didn't clear for so many of us today, and it's really going to stay quite like that at the coast, but it will change as we head a little further inland. So let's get a look at what we're watching. Overnight morning, low clouds and fog, limited clearing at the beach, a slight chance of light showers for the mountains. We did get a little bit of thunderstorm activity over the Antelope Valley earlier today. That's going to start to dissipate as we head into tomorrow, and then a slow go, but we are going to start to warm up as we head into tomorrow and Friday. May gray still in the picture. In fact, pretty much every day this month, with the exception of 3 days, we've seen May gray, and today, yes. Tomorrow, also a yes. So we're really looking at, again, a pretty typical weather pattern for this time of year. And as we get a look at your futurecast, we're sandwiched between two pressure systems. We've got high pressure right there over the Four Corners region. We've got low pressure sitting offshore, kicking up a lot of that cloud cover. You're going to see that counterclockwise rotation, bringing in the sea breeze and bringing in the clouds. Then you've got high pressure that's going to start to build in a little bit over the next couple of days, and it's going to dominate. So with that, we're going to kick out a lot of that marine layer in the afternoon, and we're going to bring temperatures up a little bit for us as well. So let's take a closer look at what we're contending with over the next few days. Again, clearer conditions. You'll see that through the weekend. Sunday, there could be a few disturbances to our north. What's a disturbance? A little bit of a storm, if you will. This is not going to affect us tremendously, maybe just a little bit of cloud cover as we move into Sunday, and possibly some drizzle from the clouds. But over the next couple of days, temperatures warm. Conditions, well, cloudy in the morning, but clearing by the afternoon. We're jumping ahead into Thursday, where we are going to start to see some clearer conditions tomorrow afternoon by 2 p.m. and then continuing on through 5 o'clock tomorrow. Clearer all around. We'll see a return of that marine layer Friday morning, but just not nearly as widespread as what we got used to seeing, and it won't stick around as long on Friday. We will see more clearing with the exception of the coast. We will have a look at your extended forecast. We're going to dive deep into what we can expect Saturday and Sunday and beyond in just a little bit. Susie, Chauncey, back to you.
All right, Evelyn, thank you so much. And when we come back from break, we're going to take you back to UC Irvine, where there is some police movement right now as we're watching from SkyCal, as these protesters who have been there for weeks now are told to clear out, and they've been given 5 minutes. That was about 17 minutes ago. We'll be right back after a short break.